on their mainline locomotives. They're able to shift coal up on the main line and deliver it pretty readily here. Each locomotive here at the railway, whether it be steam or diesel, can only push one coach at a time up the steep grade. Our maximum outbound speed will be anywhere between 2.5 and 4 miles an hour, depending on the grades. And our downbound speed will be about 5 miles an hour. So no crazy roller coaster ride, just a nice leisurely journey. Just up ahead here, our engineer will sound the whistle to signify the true start of our journey here on the highest mountain, of course, in all of New England, Mount Washington, where we're headed our way up to 6,288 feet elevation. After the whistle blast, you are then welcome to move around if you would choose to. Just be careful. The only things you can't do are touch the equipment in the back, brake wheels and so forth. Open up the door in the back at any time for any reason, or come out onto the platform here with me while we're in motion. You can take turns coming up to just behind the first row of seats to get a picture, but make sure that you rotate back to give everyone an opportunity. Now, in my very biased opinion, you guys picked the absolute best way to experience the Cog Railway with the authenticity and the nostalgia of our coal-fired steam train. The majority of our trips during the course of the day are our biodiesel trips, which will get you to the same destination, but without the flair and the experience of steam, which has been alive here since the 1860s. Our railway is actually the oldest continuously operating tourist rail line in the world, because we were built exclusively for tourism and no other purpose. Our first summit trip ran on July the 3rd of 1869. And we're following more or less the same route today, this western side of Mount Washington, using a very similar design track system. The mechanisms that are at work to get us up these steep inclines are a combination of the center rack running up the middle of the tracks and the cog gears or sprockets which are underneath the locomotive. Those sprockets have teeth which interlock with the rack segments to propel us forward and up. We do not friction drive off the outside rails by spinning the outside wheel sets like a regular mainline railway would do. Our wheels just free spin along and the rail's there to guide us on the route. Without tractive effort is into the rack there. Now, the unique idea behind this railway, which, by the way, is the first of its kind in the entire world, the world's first mounted climbing cog, was all the brainchild of a New Hampshire-born businessman and inventor by the name of Sylvester Marsh. Sylvester Marsh was born in 1804 in the little town of Campton, New Hampshire, just about 1 hour south of here. He had a modest farming upbringing, eventually moved away to Boston for schooling, developed a bit of a mechanical engineering interest, and he would work in both the meatpacking and grain drying industries, the latter of which led him out to the Chicago area where he settled for a time, and he invented a particular grain dryer that he profited off of rather nicely. Now, by the 1850s, Marsh's health had begun to, I won't say deteriorate, but he had a condition which we now know in the modern era as dyspepsia. And on the advice of his personal physician, he moved back to New England, not only to be closer to family, but he thought maybe the wide open spaces and recreational opportunities of the mountains could serve to get himself in better shape. Now, there's no better way to do that, as I know, as an avid hiker, than to hike these White Mountains. And Marsh decided he wanted to hike the highest of all on one late August Sunday afternoon in 1857. As Marsh set out here along with his pastor, the two men began their ascent and eventually ran into some very foul, severe weather up above tree line, quite nearly threatened their lives. As the temperatures plummeted, the rain turned to freezing rain, even though it was August. The wind chill was biting, and the visibility was very poor. The men found themselves fighting for their lives, desperately trying to reach the summit, because even way back then, there was a shelter at the top of the mountain, known as the Tip Top House. That building, by the way, still stands today, and you can see the exterior of it during your summit stay. It was a very rustic hotel, and Marsh's plan, if they could make it, was to spend the night there. And they were hoping and praying that perhaps the conditions would be more favorable to descend the mountain in the morning. Now, luckily, that worked out. When he woke that morning, the storm cleared away. And this opened up a picturesque view of not only the valleys below, but quite a lofty view where Marsh found he could see as far as the Atlantic Ocean glimmering off the coast of Maine. When he looked to the other direction off to the west, he could see the Adirondack Peaks off in the distance on the horizon line, of course in the state of New York. As Marsh marveled at the view, he thought that everyone, regardless of their ability to hike, should have the opportunity to enjoy the beauty, splendor, and ruggedness of New England's highest mountain. Or perhaps a mechanized means of ascent like a railway could prove to be a fairly good business venture for him if he could pull it off, and something that may fit rather nicely within the burgeoning tourism economy of the White Mountains. So the idea for our cog railway was born all out of this hike and, quite frankly, near-death experience on the trail. Contrary to the pleasant weather we have today, Mount Washington is actually known for having what is considered the world's worst weather. When it gets bad, it can be life-threatening, and it often has been, as this mountain has the highest hiker death toll of any single peak in the United States, and is generally considered the most dangerous small mountain worldwide. Many of those deaths are because folks underestimate the mountain. They figure a 6,000-foot mountain, how bad can it be when there's 14,000 footers out in the western part of the state, the Rockies? Truth is, the weather here is every bit as bad, if not worse. Now, Marsh's plan was just that in the beginning stages of the plan, and it was a very sketchy plan. At least that's what people thought about it. No railway like this has been attempted anywhere else, so folks are rather skeptical of his mechanical intent here. And he was often disparagingly referred to as Crazy Marsh. Even the New Hampshire legislature told him he may as well build a railway to Brooklyn. However, Marsh remained undeterred. And he was able to get a charter approved from the Mount Washington Railway Company when the Civil War broke out. And of course, when that happened, everything was put on hold here. Construction of the line here would truly begin in May of 1866. The line was clear, and a robust track crew, many of which were returning veterans in the northern states in the Civil War. They got to work laying track with the help of the first locomotive, Old Pepper Sass, a vertical boiler wood-burning steam engine that had a top speed of 1.5 miles an hour. Now, by 1868, time was running out. The charter Marsh had from the Mount Washington Railway Company only granted him a very specific amount of time in which to complete the track work. So at that point, one of the co-investors that eventually came on board after the concept was proven was the Concord and Montreal Railroad, predecessors to Boston and Maine. They kind of took over the track construction process from Marsh and ensured that it would be done by the deadline. They also insisted that some partial trips be run in the summer of 1868 to generate additional revenue. Those trips went about 2/3 of the way up the mountain. And as I stated earlier, on July the 3rd, 1869, we had that first summit round trip. To much fanfare, as later that summer, We were visited by then President Ulysses S. Grant. Transcontinental Railroad. So it's spread the year for railroading in the United States. Not a lot has changed in over 150 years of operations here. We still follow this same route. We still use steam power. We still use the rack and cost system. And pricing is pretty on point. $3 per round trip in 1869. That's actually more expensive than the USA. $120 equivalent. The railroad was 100% steam powered until 2008. So these newer biodiesel locomotives you're seeing around the base, they did not come along until they slowly began to go into retirement. You do have two active still, this one and the number 2. Down the shop has the spare in reserve. Beginning to work a bit harder, and our speed slowed just a bit as we began to climb this grade here. Grades on our rail line average at 25%. Every 4 feet we travel forward in a horizontal plane, we gain 1 foot of elevation. That's the average grade. In several sections, the grade is quite a bit lower than that. This is one of them. Right here we have our 3rd steepest overall section. It's known as Cold Spring Hill, aptly named for the abundance of underground springs which are just nearby here in the woods. This section averages about 35%, all the way to the top of that incline where the track disappears. The greater than 1 foot in every 3 travel on that ascent. Now, if you guys want to get a true appreciation for just how intense it is, we switch at this angle. The best way to do that is to go ahead and try to stand up. Some of you have already tried this. If not, I welcome you to give it a go. Just be careful. If we stand up, we have to lean forward quite a bit to compensate for the incline of our coach. And if you get used to doing it that way, you want to try the slightly more adventurous method. You can turn around and face the locomotive and lean back into the grade like this, which will give you a pretty good idea of what being on a mountain climbing railway is all about.
Near the steam locomotive.